What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Junior and I started cleaning the shop a couple days ago, starting to make more space, and when we were moving the toolbox around, I started thinking of a good video idea. I want to show you guys what we have in that toolbox that we've always had since back in the days, and what we use to build our cars. Like this KAT Nissan hardbody, my E30 that's all currently torn apart, but before it was M52 swapped, and all the other crazy cars that we've built, like a supercharged G35, 1JZ IS300, a Slam Miata, E36, E46, you name it, the list goes on. Before we start the toolbox rundown, if you guys are new to the channel, feel free to check it out. We build cool cars like I just mentioned. And if you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up and comment, and subscribe for more content. This video isn't going to be a comparison video. We're not going to be comparing brands of tools like Snap-on, Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, Icon. There's so many brands and there's many options of tools. There's different skill levels to being a technician. There's beginner, intermediate, advanced. Whether you're wrenching on cars at home or for a dealership, you know, you're going to slowly progress. I use a lot of Icon here. One, because I love the way the ratchets feel, and two, because of their lifetime warranty. And I actually tested it out. One of our ratchets broke. I sent it over to them and didn't even need a receipt. You know, they just replaced it on the spot. If you guys are new to working on cars and just want to get started with it, what I personally recommend is getting a starter kit. So you can get a starter kit from, you know, all the big name stores. Like Harbor Freight is the main one. They sell really big starter kits for like what, $300-400 bucks, which is gonna have ratchets, extensions, sockets, screwdrivers. There's tools that we don't even have in here that I'm gonna be recommending you get because we have our good friends, the Boosted Gentleman next door. There's many drawers in this toolbox and I'm not going to be going in order. So I'm gonna be going off of certain categories, starting off with the ratchets, sockets, and torque wrenches. So that's gonna be my favorite drawer, the big one. So with this one, this is where I keep all of our ratchets and sockets. We don't have too many tools where we have to start taking the ratchets off of their casings because I really like the way this looks. It's super organized and I hate when ratchets just flop around. What I recommend starting off with is something like a 3/8 ratchet. This is the Icon one. This is just the standard ratchet. I also recommend getting a flex head. It doesn't need to be this long, but this is pretty nice, especially if you want to break things loose. When it comes to the sockets, I always recommend starting off with a deep set because the short one is nice, but you can't always reach all the fasteners, especially if they're studs with nuts. You know, they might be too long, and that's where the deep sockets come into play. And this is always something that, you know, people start off with. So I do have the shallow and deep, and they work fine for me. There's 3 different sizes technically. There's medium-sized sockets as well, but honestly, these are just fine, so I'm never gonna be using the medium size. The second size I recommend is going to be the 1/2 inch. We have the 1/2 inch flex head, and then the straight. The only thing that I'm missing here is a breaker bar because breaker bars are so important. We're doing it the hack way by just breaking things loose with a regular ratchet, and that just causes problems because you could break them. That's why we have lifetime warranty, guys.
Because we break shit around here.
And for the 1/2 inch, I only have the shallow sockets. These were on sale, so that's why I picked these up. I'm still yet to get those or even need them, to be honest with you. On my 3/8 Milwaukee Impact, which I'll show you guys later, I do use chrome sockets. You know, that's gonna be more of a low torque, so it's not really gonna have an issue. But when you're using some air tools and a 1/2 inch, that's where things get sketchy. The only socket set that I don't have here is for the 1/4 inch. The 1/4 inch ratchet is gonna be mainly for like really tight places. If you really wanna get in there, especially on BMWs where everything is so crammed, this ratchet is going to help you out. But here, you know, with the builds that we work on, it's not really that much of an issue. Getting into the German cars, you're gonna be using a lot of inverted torques. And these guys are everywhere on these BMWs. So if you have a BMW, you're most likely gonna be owning a set along with some Torx. Torx bits are fine, but the thing is you have to make sure you have the right size in there because some sizes feel like they fit and then you end up stripping the bolt. And my least favorite set of tools in this toolbox is these wobbly rounded Allens. I absolutely hate these. The only thing these are good for is going into bolts at an angle, but the problem is they love to round bolts. I've done it countless of times, especially when the bolt is super tight. I definitely recommend getting yourself a set of wobblies if you really need them, and a set of regular Allens. You can get Allen keys, but obviously when you need to torque things, this is definitely going to be the set you need to get. Getting into some specialty sockets, we have this Pittsburgh kit for lug nuts, and they're actually impact sockets, but as you can see, they're coated in some plastic. It allows you to not damage the wheels, because we've all done it where we nick the inside of the wheel where the lug nut goes. Especially if you have a really nice set of wheels, you definitely want to use this. The only gripe that I have with these sockets is because they have the nylon cover, it is pretty thick, and if you have wheels like mine, which have super small holes, it won't fit without taking the cover off. So definitely something I recommend having, but it's not always going to fit every wheel application. But that's okay, because when you can use it and you do use it, you're gonna feel a lot better that you're not nicking those wheels. Say you're just starting to buy tools and you don't have all the ratchet sizes and all the socket sizes, or you're trying to go into a spot that is very tight and you need a smaller socket. Well, that's where some adapters start coming in. These are very nice for the reasons I mentioned, because you're able to just use a certain socket size on a different size ratchet. The only thing I don't recommend doing is not using an impact, or say you're using a 3/8 ratchet with a 1/4 inch socket. If it's a really stubborn bolt, you're most likely going to break it, and I always break this specific size. So it's just something to look out for, but it's nice to have. These wobbly extensions are really nice because they allow you to go into some really weird spots. I honestly only use the 1/2 inch here. On almost every transmission removal we've done, especially on the ground, you really have to go in at awkward angles. Having that 1/2 inch wobbly saves your life, because there are some really tight trans tunnels where you cannot get to the top bolts for the life of you. We've gone over a lot, but now it's time to start talking about the torque wrenches, and that's something that not a lot of people use. You don't really need to go into anything fancy, but you want to have at least a nice, well-known brand so you know that it's been calibrated well. This torque wrench is typically the one that everybody's going to be using, and the way you adjust the torque wrench is you bring this lever down and then you start tightening it or loosening it. There's a spring inside here, and when you're adjusting the actual ratchet, that's going to change the torque. If you do use these torque wrenches, you have to make sure that you're zeroing it out once you're done with them. Just like all springs, they do have memory, and if you leave it with a super high torque and the spring's compressed, if you leave it like that for a couple days, months, what happens is that spring is gonna change, and it's not gonna give you an accurate reading, and you're gonna have to go get your torque wrench recalibrated, or if you have a cheap one like this, most likely either gonna warranty it or have to buy a new one. Now for my favorite, this guy is the digital torque wrench. The only benefit for these torque wrenches, most of them do angle. And say you're working on an engine or suspension that requires you to use a certain amount of degrees to tighten it, you can do that with this torque wrench. You don't have to use one of these dials that I bought from AutoZone. But there's plenty of brands that make good versions of these, and a lot of engine builders like these. But for a guy like me, I like using a digital torque wrench for that reason. The only gripe about these things is because they're electronic, they need batteries, and I wish I could show you how it works, but it's dead. Before I end the first category, I forgot to include a set of extensions. Duh, definitely recommend these. These are just regular straight extensions. There are some that are wobbly, and if you have baller money, the snap-on ones make some straight and wobblies built into one. If you just put the socket on regular, it's a wobbly. If you push it all the way down, it becomes just a straight fixed extension. This is like a no-brainer. You definitely need some extensions. 3/8 first, 1/2 inch next, and then you can get a 1/4 inch, which I don't even have. So that shows you how much, I use them. For the most part, we're done with all the ratchets and sockets. Now let's move over to the next category, which is gonna be the screwdrivers / pry bars / I guess picks, whatever you want to call them, the little tiny picks. Luckily, I bought a brand new set of snap-on screwdrivers at work, so I was able to bring my old ones here. But we have a set of some Harbor Freight ones and some snap-on ones here. Before I show you guys, I do not recommend prying on anything with these screwdrivers because they're not meant for prying, and most of them will give you a warning label for that, but we always use them, If you guys have a set of some nice Icon screwdrivers, they will break. They are not made like the snap-on ones. The shaft ends very close to the tip of the screwdriver, they're gonna be more prone to breaking. I've broken them, Nick's broken them. Even you've broken them all.
I've broken all screwdrivers at work. Icon.
He doesn't even work on cars at work.
I don't work on cars at work.
And you have some Icon tools there, right?
Yeah, everything I have at work is Icon.
It's good stuff, but
good stuff.
Screwdrivers is like a little iffy one, huh? Getting a variety of some screwdrivers in different sizes is going to be really nice because there are many different sizes for screwdrivers, and we typically just use the sizes we have, but if you have a good variety, it's going to prevent you from stripping them. We just have a bunch of screwdrivers here. Some of them are labeled in their sizes, but I don't really pay attention to them. Like I said, I just use which one fits, and typically I like using my snap-on ones, but the Harbor Freight ones do work really well, and so do the Icon. Moving over to the pry bars, we just have a generic set of some Pittsburgh ones, and they work really well. You don't really have to get fancy with it. I've never broken a pry bar. And if you do break one of these, you're either using too small of a size, or that bolt or that bracket is really stuck. One of my Icon picks is missing, but I really like using these for some smaller seals to take them out without damaging them. There's another set of tools that I would put in the same category, and it's these pry tools that you can use for a lot of little miscellaneous clips, and I swear by these. These guys work so well, and I have a pair of these at work. I don't even have a Snap-on or Matco brand. I love these. They've never failed me, and these take off all the plastic clips. I recommend these Pittsburgh ones. I swear by them. I always use them, and they have some bigger sizes, like this guy. They're massive. That's pretty much all for the screwdrivers and pry bars. Moving over to the next category, it's gonna be the pliers. We have a lot of them that we're probably never gonna be using. The main ones that I recommend is a set of some regular pliers and a set of some needle nose pliers. These things are gonna come in handy, especially if you wanna remove some hose clamps or trying to remove some oil lines, coolant lines, things that are really stubborn. These are going to be your best friend. Not really much to say about those except they're useful when you use them, especially if you're working on cooling systems. I feel like that's the only time I ever use needle nose. It's just taking off clamps. Now for the next category that should have gone right after the ratchets and sockets. I always use wrenches every single day, and I love using them. For the shop, I typically just use the regular size wrenches. You can get the mini ones. I have them at work, and they work really nice for some tight spots. What I personally recommend for sizes 19 and below, get yourself some ratcheting wrenches, whether there's some mountain flex head wrenches or just a regular set of some Icon ones. These things work so good, and I would never go back to some regular wrenches because you can use this as a ratchet, and it's a lot thinner than a ratchet, so you can get it in some tight spots. I just picked up a set of these extra large wrenches that go all the way up to 24. I've never really used them in the past, but getting into some truck suspension, or if you want to use these to maybe turn the crank, unless you have a truck or you're really going to be doing some suspension work, I wouldn't put this as a necessity. If you really need it, you can swing by the store and pick them up, but these guys definitely recommend. These wrenches are meant for AN fittings. The thing about AN fittings is they always get nicked up. So having a set of these that are soft material, they help in preventing the nicking. That's what I love about these wrenches, is the precision is really nice. I just picked up a set because we started using AN fittings on the hard body, and all my future builds are most likely going to consist of them, especially for like turbo setups. The title of this video is all the tools you need to build your car, so I wanted to include those for all the guys that build cool cars. You're most likely going to be using a set of these, unless you just want to use some regular wrenches to nick those AN fittings up, which I don't recommend. And for all my BMW guys, this is the clutch fan tool, my 32mm, to remove all the fan clutches on those E46, E36, and possibly E30s. I don't know if they're the same size, but for all my BMW guys, you guys know what this is. Typically for electrical, you don't really need much. You can get a set of pliers that do most of the work for crimping and stripping. What I like about this specific tool is that it does both. You can actually use this to crimp and to strip. So there's two sections. So if you're just getting into wiring, you can go to Harbor Freight, pick one of these up. Obviously not the same brand, but something similar. Once you start getting a little fancy with your crimpers and you want to do some open barrel crimps, these guys will help you out, but not really necessary, and most people don't ever use them. As far as a wiring tool that's not really necessary but very convenient is these Blue Point wire strippers. These things make stripping wires super easy. Finishing up the electrical category, the last thing I want to show you guys is something that's extremely overpriced, so there's many different options out there. This is the guy that's gonna help you solve your electrical issues. When it comes to electrical, there's so many different types of problems that you can have, and once you understand it, it becomes a lot easier, but nonetheless, the main tool you need to diagnose things or even test things out is a multimeter, and you can get some Harbor Freight stuff. These things are used for everything from houses to cars. So there's none that you're gonna buy that are dedicated for cars because these handle a lot of voltage. Houses are 110, 220, cars are 12 volt systems. Definitely recommend you guys pick one of these up to start learning and doing a couple of YouTube searches on understanding electrical the way it works. If you're just gonna be using it at home, you can easily pick up a multimeter for like 30 to 40 bucks from Harbor Freight. It's not really that big of a deal. Once you get to a nerd level like me, start searching for some better options because these things are gonna work a lot better. You obviously get what you pay for. That pretty much sums up most of the tools I have in this toolbox. The next two categories are gonna be power tools and specialty tools. Impacts, 3/8 impacts, a Dremel, and so many more. I say the only two that you really need is a drill, because you're gonna be drilling some things on your car, especially if you're building it. Say a bolt broke and you need to extract it. Definitely recommend picking up a drill. I'm using a Milwaukee one. I got a bundle for these two for like 100 bucks, so it was a steal. I use Milwaukee for all my impacts. I like keeping everything the same brand if I'm gonna be investing in it. You don't have to necessarily pick a Milwaukee. DeWalt makes some good stuff. If you're really baller like that, you can get some Snap-on stuff, which I have at work, and takes me a while to pay those things off, so definitely takes a chunk out of your pocket. Second thing I recommend is a Dremel. We always borrow our grinders from Martin and Jeremiah, but we definitely need to get our own. But aside from a grinder, these Dremels help a ton. We always use these things, and it just helps cutting the little stuff. Just like the grill that we cut out on the K8T hardbody. Whatever brand you choose, just make sure it's good. And Junior just mentioned a good point, a good warranty policy too. Because Milwaukee has, I think, a year warranty policy or something?
I think like 2 years.
2 years, yeah. So we've returned a couple things. Our last Dremel got fried. Going into the specialty stuff, we have a couple different boxes. Do you ever hate needing something that you have to run to AutoZone or Rallies to rent out a tool? This is the things that you start getting and you end up either keeping or buying your own. There's still plenty of things that I still need to buy, but I'll give you a rundown of what we have here, and it's gonna be super fast. Right here, we have an oil pressure kit. This one is from Snap-on, and it's honestly really good to have if you're building a motor or you just want to know how healthy your engine is. The only reason I have a Snap-on one is I got it from my buddy for stupid cheap, and we're going to be using this for the hard body, something that I didn't use for my 1JZ, but it wasn't freshly rebuilt. So wanting to make sure an engine like that that's freshly rebuilt is getting oil pressure and we're not having any issues with that, this is gonna be our friend. This guy right here is from AutoZone, I believe, and it's a compression tester. I have two engine compression testers. I have one from Evertough, which I think is from like AutoZone. I always end up using this one, and there's plenty of adapters for different spark plug threads, but compression testers are really good for checking the overall, I guess, health of your motor. If you're buying a car, a lot of people like to do compression tests on it. It won't tell you everything, but it'll tell you how good the engine is sealing, because that's what the rings are for. So you have bad rings, or maybe a blown up motor and you have a hole in your piston, it's knocking, you can check compression in that cylinder. And if it's low compared to all the other cylinders, then you have an issue. If you rent one out at AutoZone, you get your money back when you return it. So if you guys ever want to practice doing a compression test, just look up a quick DIY on YouTube and practice yourself. It's super fun, super cool to check the overall health of your engine. We'll probably even do it on the K8T just to kind of see what numbers they have. The next tool going into cooling systems is this cooling system pressure test kit. I brought this one from work to show you guys because it's super neat. And if you're ever dealing with, say a radiator leak, coolant leak, and you don't know where it's actually leaking from, what you can do with this kit is actually pressurize the radiator or the expansion tank. You can actually apply pressure like the motor would while it's running. And this kit has a bunch of different adapters for different radiators, but it's a cool kit to have. It's gonna be more for like diagnosing an issue, something that I recommend every technician gets, but we've never used one of these when we were building cars. But maybe going forward, if we ever have a leak on maybe my daily, his daily, one of our cars, this will be a quick and easy way to check, especially if you want to check if it's even building pressure. Aside from that, now it's all just the miscellaneous stuff to make your life easier. This, I recommend everybody gets. It's a spark plug toolkit. All these are magnetic, they're all different sizes, and it makes removing spark plugs so much easier. Plenty of brands make these. I'll make sure to link all these tools down below. We have this kit, harmonic balancer cooler. Kind of self-explanatory, helps take the crank pulleys off because they can be a pain in the ass. This is something that I should have mentioned with the pliers. These are for the circlips. I got it from Icon. And it comes with all sorts of different shapes and sizes. You can buy like a universal one that adjusts to, you know, your needs, but having something like this where it's a specified plier, that's really nice. And the last thing, this guy right here is awesome. If you're building custom stuff and you want things to look like factory and you're tired of drilling your firewall or your car, if you're tired of using self-tap screws, this is a game changer. If you're drilling into sheet metal, things like the firewall area, these are super nice because these are rib nuts, but they're threaded.
And that's pretty much it. Wilder maybe if you want to start shaving bays like us.
The list can keep going on, and that's why I just gave you guys a toolbox rundown. You guys obviously need jack stands. Welder would be nice, especially if you're doing custom stuff and you want to learn yourself. An engine hoist, some engine stands, hell, even maybe a pressure washer. There are so many different tools, and I'm that type of person that if I find a new tool and it makes my life easier, I'm a sucker for it and I end up buying it. So that's my toolbox rundown, and for the most part, that's all you need to build your car, because we've been using all this stuff aside from like the hammers. Oh, we also forgot hammers because we don't have any, but hammers are very important, especially when things are stubborn. Pretty self-explanatory on those. You can get a rubber mallet if you don't want to damage anything you're breaking off. If something's really being a bitch, you can get a metal mallet or just a regular hammer. I hope you guys learned something off of this video, even if it's one thing. It's important to us that you guys learn off these videos. We try to blend entertainment with education in this channel, and we just want to make it enjoyable for you guys. The more we grow, the crazier things are gonna start becoming, and sometimes we need to just scale it back. A lot of you guys want me to make a day in the life as a BMW technician, and I'm sure my boss will let me. He's super cool, but I don't know, I get a little nervous recording at work, so we'll see about that one. If you guys like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, press the bell notification. You guys know what to do. Thank you so much for everyone watching this video and enjoying the content that we make. Really appreciate every one of you guys.
And they gotta share the videos too.
Yup, sharing's important.
Share the videos.
The more you share, the more it'll help us grow.
Send it to your brother, your sister, your grandma, your mom, your dad. Send it to everybody.
Everybody, even your ex.
Even your ex.
What do you guys think about the new shop layout? We have all this room for another project, which we're gonna be bringing in pretty soon. But on that note, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share, and we'll see you guys on the next one.